Zwiener.
Hey y'all, I'm Erin Zwiener. I represent House District 45, Hayes and Blanco counties, just southwest of Austin. And I'm not sure what we're supposed to talk about after you, Rep. Goodwin. That was such a great illustration of why Rep. Goodwin is my favorite of my fellow freshman members, because she's always one of the most prepared people on the floor and does the work. But I kind of want to acknowledge the political landscape that we are in. A majority of Texans support full legalization of marijuana. Unfortunately, our elected officials are a fair bit behind and are taking some time to catch up. And I really want to thank y'all for doing the work to help push candidates and office holders forward on this issue. Because, it's an issue that gets talked a lot about, in this recreational space without acknowledging the very real cost to our community that criminalizing marijuana has and the very real economic benefits of legalizing cannabis. So I wholeheartedly support the legalization of cannabis. I think it's what makes sense. I think evidence shows us it will reduce violent crime to have this to have the cannabis market be a legal above ground one. And I think the dollars and cents add up as well. And of course, all of this is rooted in the fact that there is not a good societal reason to have cannabis be illegal in the first place. It doesn't make sense. It never really did. And it's time for us to address that. So I just kind of want to talk about a few of the things I'm thinking about as I think about marijuana policy. One thing is that we spend hundreds of millions of dollars every year just to enforce low-level marijuana possession crimes. By some estimates, around $750 million. I can think of a lot of things I would rather we spend $750 million, healthcare and schools, to name two. And that's a lot of our local tax dollars as well. That's a lot of money that's coming out of people's property tax bills. That's something where we can reduce cost. And it also means that our law enforcement officers are spending time on these crimes that are victimless crimes that don't hurt anyone, instead of investigating potentially more serious crimes. So I want to make sure we're using our law enforcement officers' time well. And then I think we also have to talk about the racial disparities in marijuana enforcement and really understand the way possession of any drug, really, but marijuana in particular, disproportionately impacts our Black and brown communities. White people and Black people use cannabis at the same rate. Black people are nearly 4 times as likely to be arrested. That's a disparity that is a problem. And it's a problem that we have left this tool out there to be used in this racialized way in our communities. If we legalize marijuana, some estimates are that Texas can bring in almost $1 billion of revenue annually. We have seen states like Washington and Colorado bring in hundreds of millions of dollars. I can guarantee you a lot of that Colorado money is coming from Texans. Texans already love to vacation in Colorado, and Colorado gave them another reason to visit. I would like our dollars to stay here in Texas. I would like us to acknowledge the realities on the ground and change the situation. And then I also want to touch a little bit on medical marijuana. I did file one piece of legislation related to medical marijuana last session. I intend to file it again and move forward with it. It was legislation to end this practice of pain management doctors penalizing their patients if they test positive for marijuana. So we have a lot of pain patients who explore other options, and we know the effects of opiates can be devastating on an individual and their family. And so sometimes patients look for other options. They shouldn't be afraid to look for other options because of worry that they will lose any access to pain medication, especially now when just crossing a state line means folks can be accessing cannabis without breaking any laws in that state. So that's something I'm going to pursue again next session. I'm really glad that we passed legislation last session to expand access to medical marijuana. I agree with Rep. Goodwin, it did not go far enough. We need to regulate cannabis like any other drug, and the doctors or other medical providers should decide when it's appropriate to prescribe it, instead of the state of Texas trying to give arbitrarily narrow situations in which those prescriptions are acceptable. So I'm glad we passed the legislation. It made a big difference for a lot of Texas families and a lot of folks who are struggling, but it didn't go anywhere near far enough. And I look forward to picking up that work next session, as well as picking up the work to decriminalize. Those are both important steps on the way to full legalization. And I can promise you we're going to keep chipping away until we get there.